Welcome to the Bernina 880 Mastery Live. It's our Lesson 6, Embroidery Introduction with Susan Fears.
Thanks, Catherine. Welcome, everyone. And we're continuing in our series to learn more about this great machine. And now we're finally at the embroidery part. So this is an introduction to embroidery. We're going to just talk about some of the basics, how you need to set your machine up for success. We're going to talk about threading the bobbin because you have to do one additional part. We're going to talk about the setup menu and some of the operations that you'll want to be aware of so that as you are sewing and using embroidery that you can continue to have good success and good results. And then we'll look at the embroidery eye. Just like we spend all the time in sewing looking at all the great creative features, we're going to take a look at the sewing eye in embroidery, or the eye for embroidery, and see what all of those great little functions do for us. And we'll talk about some easy ways to go from this to that, helping just to learn the navigation just a little bit. So just to get started, you've got a module that you'll be attaching to your machine, and it's a pretty unique module. It's an intelligent module, and it's great for plug and play, which means that as you plug it in and the machine can be on, you'll hear a little thunk, and that is the machine recognizing that the module has been attached. When you attach the hoops, it recognizes what size and what hoop you have attached. Some of the benefits that we'll enjoy is that should you hit the module arm, this happens frequently in classes when people get up in their spin-around chair, the back hits the module arm, the long piece, and then causes the position to move somewhere else. So it will find its position. If the power goes out while it is embroidering, of course it will stop, but then it will resume right back, remembering where its last embroidery position was. And I can attest to this by experience that this is a wonderful feature to have, and when it happens to you, you will be so thankful that it is there. The slide-on tray or the slide-on table can be attached to the machine. The arm that supports the hoops just slides right over top of it, and it is fantastic to use that when you have some of these large hoops that you'll want to be embroidering with. So it does offer extra support for these larger hoops. And then finally, you want to be sure that you set your machine up on a flat and sturdy table. The module connects to the machine just through two, pretty, well, they're connectors, to like a little electrical connectors, but they're not strong connections. They're just like a plug. And so, should the machine be not set straight, you're not going to have good connection while the module is trying to communicate to your machine. So those need to be on a flat and sturdy table, and the sturdy is important because you don't want any vibration going on the table with a flimsy table. How you're going to attach the module is there is actually a little place where you can place your hand on this side, on the underneath side of the module. So it's just a little slot that the hand will fit in. You're going to lift it up at an angle and then just slide it into the machine, and you'll hear, if the machine is on, you'll hear the little clunk that it recognizes that the two have joined. When it comes time to remove it, you're going to put your hand in that same slot, you're going to lift up, and then you're going to pull away. And it's very simple to attach and to remove. You'll notice in both of these pictures that the module is at an angle. And you may remember in the slide before this I talked about the slide-on table can be used. The slide-on table is not attached during the attaching or detaching of the module because it's a big flat surface. There's no way for you to get the proper angle that you need to insert the module or to detach it. So the slide-on table is not on the machine at this time, and I'll show you how to be able to park that arm so that you can manipulate and maneuver the slide-on tray as you need to for these types of things. The other thing that you need to know that's pretty much key for embroidery on the 880 is how to thread that bobbin. I know by this point are pretty proficient at threading for sewing, and so if you are good at threading for sewing, just adding this one last little step, you've already learned part of it. So you're going to start like we did for sewing. You put the bobbin onto the little post, the thread goes into the slit just like you see here, as you pull it out to the side, it's still going to go back behind the bobbin area, almost like you're aiming it to the cutter, but you're not going to go to the cutter like you do with sewing. You are going to take the thread out. You still want the bobbin to rotate 2 revolutions to be sure that the thread gets seated in the proper area of the tension fork. But this is what's going to be different. This is the part that you're going to add. Once you've pulled at those 2 revolutions, then you're going to bring the thread up to the top of this, right up underneath this curve of the retaining finger. So that's what the start here means. You want to bring it up till it's really at this level, and then you're going to let the thread just slide down. How you hold the thread will make a difference into how this works for you. Holding the thread more towards you, almost at a 45-degree angle, is going to allow you to keep tension on the thread the entire time the thread is sliding down that retaining finger. So if you hold it towards you, not too far up, then it will just slide down. And it'll continue going down. You'll see how it's just hugging this little metal slide. And you're just going to keep going. When you get to about here, you may feel a little hesitation, you might feel a little bump, and you might hear a little click. That is actually the thread working its way into the embroidery tension so that you have that extra added tension on the bobbin thread for embroidery. That is normal. You want to feel a little bump. You want to hear a little click. I work with lots of these machines in classroom settings. Sometimes they have a click and sometimes they don't, but there's usually a little feel. You feel a little bump. So you should know that it is in the right spot. Then, if you were able to turn it over, this is what you would see, but this is what you will see if you use the mirror. So those first 2 revolutions that we pull the thread, just like we did in sewing, was to get the thread into this tension fork. That little bump, okay, that you are hearing is it actually going into this little area, because this is the extra tension space for the embroidery thread tension, and it's in exactly the right place. So just as I was mentioning, this is the little area that it's pulling into, so that's the little bump, that's the little area of resistance. You might hear a little click as it slides into the right place. Then once that's happened, it is not coming out. If you have it seated in there properly, it's staying. You can then take the thread to the cutter and cut it like you normally would, just pulling it towards you to cut the thread. So that is threading the bobbin for embroidery. It's something that you'll want to practice so that you are good at it. The reason that we need to have the embroidery thread of the bobbin into that extra little tension is you want the bobbin thread to have a little bit more tension on it to pull that top thread to the back side. That way you never see any of the bobbin thread. Even though the thread I'm using in this picture is red, typically your bobbin thread for embroidery, it's always the same color. It's either black or white. We don't change the embroidery thread in the bobbin with every top thread color. So let's take a look at what else is next, because now here comes all the fun part about working with the Bernina 880 and embroidery. If you were in sewing, you would need to touch the home button, and then this is how you go back and forth between sewing and embroidery. We want to select embroidery, and now you're looking at the 4 folders that everything is grouped into. There are lots of alphabet styles to work with, and you would look at those and select by using the little arrows. I'm going to begin to use our navigation. I want to go back 1 level. This is our breadcrumb navigation. This is showing me the folder I'm in. This is going to take me back to my 4 main folders. Then I have all of my motifs that are built and stored into the machine. There are 400. This folder is a great folder, and it looks like sewing stitches, and that's exactly what it is. It is a copy of every sewing stitch at its default setting stored in this folder, so you can access each one of them from embroidery. And then the folder with the heart, this is the folder where you can store your own things. Right now, as I look at everything, I am looking at folders that are on the machine. So the machine is depressed, and I have my USB stick also here. So if I were to want more designs, from my USB stick, I would select the USB stick option and it would display whatever designs I had there, perhaps from an exclusive collection. So we have 400 designs built in. They're in the butterfly folder. There are some fantastic folders to look through. Folder number 1 has some beautiful large florals. You'll see them in color, and you'll see them also as a black and white version, or just a black version. So you can have 2 ways to use these, and there's several beautiful pages of motifs here. So right now I'm in this folder. This takes me back up 1 level. Then I have a folder full of large monograms and some paisleys in more of a monochromatic scheme. Folder number 3 are some large quilting designs designed by Diane Godinsky. There are 22 in the folder to work with. Folder number 4 contains, not so many designs, but a few designs, and you might wonder why these are here. These designs are from the projects that you may have seen when you looked at things about the 880. So the project designs that you saw, or in any of the literature about the Bernina 880, all of those embroidery designs are here. The project instructions for each of those, they are on the Bernina website. So you can download the project instructions from the website, and you can have the motifs are already built in. If you wanted to take a look at those, you could also press the echo button, press and hold until the Bernina starts to flash across the screen, and then you would see a slideshow, and the slideshow is of these projects, so you can take a look at them on your machine as you wish. Folder number 5 is a folder of small motifs, and this is put on the machine because of a new feature called shaping, and these are smaller designs that will work well with the shaping tool, and we will see that in our next session. Folder number 6 is a large paisley alphabet, great for doing monograms. So it's an extra lettering essential tool that you have. Folder number 7, these are designs that are for your paintworks, your design works tools, paintwork, cutwork, and crystal work. So you do have some of these built in. They are great, and they are a lot of fun to work with. Then your Bernina folder number 8 is your classic collection, and inside here you'll find 10 folders of a variety of designs, things for children, things for sports, florals, holidays. There's a Swiss folder. There's also some smaller quilting designs. There's some border designs in here, just all kinds of lovely things to select from. But you will find a lot of beautiful things here. So back to our lovely 4 folders. If I were to go back to our stitches, you'll notice that my stitches folders, you might recognize these icons. This is your practical stitches, here your decorative stitches, your alphabets, buttonholes, and your quilting designs. So all of your stitches are here with the same folders that you are used to seeing from sewing. In your motifs folder, let's select one of our designs, and let's pick one of these pretty designs here. So when I go to this screen, this should look fairly familiar. You still have your status bar that we had before. One thing has changed, and that is that there is no pressure foot pressure icon. That has been replaced with the hoop icon, and the hoop icon is what you will use when you are changing hoops and doing different things with the machine. So that is your hoop icon. It is also where your park icons are. So let's say you want to get the slide on table off and you need to move that arm. So you're going to use the park icon here, and it will allow you to do that. You have your information icon here, and this is a scrollable menu as well. So when you open it for the first time, it traditionally looks like this. This is one of those menus that when you see a partial icon, it means there's more, and you can see additional icons. So right now I have this design in my hoop. I'm going to go back to my jumbo hoop just to have a little more space to work. With my move icon, I can use the knobs, and you'll see I can use, if I want to move it sideways, I use the upper knob. If I want to move it vertically, I use the lower knobs. Or I can drag and drop using your fingertip or your stylus. The icon here is center, so once you have maybe dragged and moved something away and you want to center it, it's in your move icon space. Staying within your menu, just select your I breadcrumb. Your next icon is rotate. You can free rotate in 1-degree rotations or 90-degree rotations just by touching the plus 90. Anytime you are making a change to a design, the change is reflected in the box, and you can always clear that by touching the highlighted box. The two icons below those two are your resizing icons. One of them allows you to resize height and width independently, so I can stretch it out fat or I can make it taller. So this is independently changing my size of my design. If I prefer to do it everything all at once, the both together, this is a proportional rescale, then I can use either knob when I'm in the rescale proportional icon. Anytime there is a box around with a yellow highlight, it tells me that something inside that box has changed. You have mirror image side to side and top to bottom, so just like we did in sewing. Duplicate duplicates that design. So then you can move them away from each other. Maybe you need to rotate them, or maybe you need to mirror image them to have a pleasing placement on the screen. Then you do have an icon that is the trash can. So that's not looking so great, so you can select the trash can and it will delete the highlighted design. So now I'm back to the one design. I can continue to add things here. There is no add in the information menu, but there is an add on top of this little, what we call the layers, the retrieve layers. And as you add additional things to your design or on the hoop, you'll see each of those items get their own layer. But the plus at the top allows you to add something. So when I'm adding something, it'll take me back to the folder that I was started in. So then I can select my design and then I can move things around. So right now you may just be playing with an idea. Duplicate is kind of fun, and you can start thinking about working with other designs. If you select the bottommost layer, everything becomes selected, and if I wanted to move or size or mirror image anything, everything that's in color happens with whatever tool that I select. Should you decide that you wanted to just move one thing, then you can use the layers to select just that one object and then move it around. You also can select them individually just by tapping them on the screen. So you have a lot of options when you are working. If you decide you're not really liking what's going on, you want to get rid of one of them, you can swipe to delete just like we did before. So let's say you were adding a bunch of things, grabbing a bunch of designs to work with, and you put something on there you didn't want, and your information screen wasn't open where the trash can is. So you can just swipe out to the side just like we did with our combinations, check to confirm if that's exactly what you wanted to do, and now you have your designs on the screen like so. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of one more, and I'm going to go back into our information screen. A couple of more icons to look at. We're going to look at shaping in our next lesson, and we're going to look at endless embroidery in our next lesson, and so we have a lot of great things in store for us here. There's an icon that is grayed out because with a motif like I have, a picture motif, the alphabet icon is grayed out, and we'll take a look at how cool and what you can do with the icon that is not showing when we look at the alphabets. What check does for you is your traditional check box. So you'll see the box on the screen. As you touch the arrow, the needle will move to that position, drawing a box around your design. You typically at this point have your project, your fabric hooped. You want to check the position for the embroidery placement, so you're able to select each corner of the box that the design would go to. You can also select the center, and you can move things if you need to. So if you want to move it, you have easy access to moving things at this screen. There is another way that you can do check in this screen. Again, your hoop is on. You're ready to sew. You're just going to touch the screen, and the needle is going to move to each of those little places. Now you may notice I'm trying not to touch the design because I really don't want to move the design. If I'm checking for precise placement, all I want to do is tap so that the needle moves to the closest stitch. When we first found out about absolute check, we were always tapping the design, and then the design could tend to move because it's a very sensitive screen. So now I tend to tap just to the side of what I'm trying to find the placement of, and you can check every single needle point by using this feature called absolute check. Another tool that you have is what we call stitch properties. You can turn this on or off. This would probably doesn't relate quite as much to the design that I have on the screen, but let's say that I had lettering on the screen and I had very large letters on the screen. I could change what the stitch length was going to be by turning this on, and I could also adjust the density. So these types of things come in handy for particular situations, such as you're embroidering a large letter on toweling and you want to maybe increase the density, or you may want to not have the satin stitch be so large. So all of those things can help you, and this is in your stitch properties. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of the information screen, and we're going to go take a look at a few things over on our system settings. One thing in particular would be the setup. And we've spent some time in our sewing settings when we were doing sewing, but now we want to take a look at what to look at and to check for, and what's available to us in embroidery and setup. So by selecting the hoop, this is your tension, so you can affect the overall tension here. I tend not to do this. I tend to do it through the other side of the machine, but that's here. The embroidery hoop is probably the most important thing that you want to know that's here. And this is how you're going to calibrate your hoops. So let's see, if I'm going to take the hoops off, when you go in, you have the option to calibrate your oval, mega, maxi, and jumbo. The medium and the small do not need calibration. These hoops need to be calibrated to your machine. It's a one-to-one relationship. You want to calibrate anytime you get a new hoop or after an update. And to do that, you would select let's say select the oval hoop. You're going to attach the oval hoop to the machine. It's going to come up with an animation showing you that it's going to move. Be sure you don't have anything in the way, and then you'll come to this screen. At this point, the needle is standing over top of the center of the hoop. Place in your template. You want the holders on your template, and you will get a better calibration if you have something inside the hoop. Stabilizer, fabric and stabilizer, but that helps seat the template a little bit better. The needle should go right over top of that hole for the center of the template. If it doesn't, you can make adjustments with these arrows, and when you've done that, you can press check and your calibration is finished. The reason calibration becomes so important with this machine is your basting boxes. You have built-in basting boxes, which we will take a look at throughout our embroidery session, but because one of those hugs up next to the outside of the perimeter of the hoop, you need to be really precise with where the center is so that you get the full advantage of your basting box. You do have, you can turn off the knot at the beginning of each color if you prefer. This is, the overall stitches per minute. This one here allows you to tell the machine you're putting in extra thick. Maybe you're sewing on something really thick and you want to make adjustments for that, so you can do that here. And then if you want to deactivate the cuts between threads, between thread color changes, or I'll talk about it, turn off what happens when you do embroidery, it takes 7 stitches and stops, letting you trim the thread tail should there be one sitting out. If you want to turn that off, you would do that here just by activating this little button. So you have that control as well. And that's basically the big things that you want to be aware of that are going on in embroidery. We talked about personalization. The eye is things you want to watch for. So this is your thread sensor. We like to have this on because when the embroidery top thread breaks, we'd prefer that the machine stop and not continue embroidering, so that we know that we need to do something like rethread the machine. When the bobbin runs out, we really like to have this, and if there's something going on with the tension, we'd like to be aware. The machine will stop and offer you an animation so you can check something without going too far. And then you can regulate some of the sounds. Not so much for embroidery that you'll hear much of these except for in the information screen. The rest of these were sewing and Bernina stitch regulator tools. The machine, in here you will find places like the wrench, which will let you know about cleaning and how to clean your thread cutter, which you'll want to do that, and how to just clean out the machine from time to time. You also have a packing position where it will pack. You can select this link. It will put the arm back in its regular position for packing, so you can put it back in the box. So those are just some basic tips. You have tips on oiling, but all of those things are built in right here from you. And that's what's going to be important in setup for you. In your tutorial, you do have a section on embroidery that talks about attaching the module, a little bit about hoops, stabilizers and hooping the fabric. So if you're really new to embroidery, all of these things are built in for you right away, as well as some additional techniques. You do have a DVD packed with your machine that has some great features on using some of the new tools and normal tools in embroidery, and you'll want to watch those. Those are a good way just to get your feet wet and to watch a little movie on how things operate. So let's look at a little bit more about embroidery. I'm going to, let's talk about these 4 little categories over here, or tabs as I like to call them. You have your selection tab, and when you select this gives you the opportunity to open a file, to get a new one. You can duplicate here, or I'm sorry, you can add here, but you found where the other add was, so I typically don't come out to this screen to add. If you want to save something, you would do it through here, and again, if you want to do some file memory management, you can trash designs from this screen as well. Your edit screen is where the pencil is. This is where you'll probably spend most of your time. This is where the information screen is and where you will create your design and all of that. When you're in this screen and you look at the hoop icon, then you will be able to do things like select your hoop, turn on the grid if you would like. There's certain parking positions if you'd like it to go to center, and the box around this icon is your virtual positioning. It is defaulted to on, but if you remember, we talked about absolute check. This is turning that function on so that as I touch the screen, the needle moves to that spot. When I go to the next tab, this is your colors tab, and here you're able to scroll through and see what your colors are, what they all are here. This is access to your color wheel, which we will look at in another session, and then this is how you change brands of thread. So let's say that I want to change this thread to a different brand of thread. I'm going to select the little change function. I'm going to scroll to the brand of thread that I am changing to, and then I'm going to select this option, go back to my colors, and it has changed all of those thread colors to the new thread library. It makes the best match possible because not all thread libraries have the same number of threads, so something just to be aware of. We will look at color wheel. While we're here, let's just take a quick look. So to change the color of a design, all I do is just rotate the wheel, and it's just pretty fun, pretty easy. I can affect the lightness and the brightness by selecting here. Now this looks great, but I really hope I can stitch this out, and what you'll notice is that all of the colors have now been changed to the thread that you need to go find to stitch it out to be what you saw on screen. So this is now the new color of my design, and now I'm ready to stitch this out. So I'm going to select the needle, It's going to ask me for a hoop. I'm going to attach the hoop, and I have engaged the thread, the cutter between thread colors. I like to have this on. This is your basting box, so you have two options with your basting box. One is around the design, and one is around the perimeter of the hoop, which is why those hoop calibrations are so important. Should you break a stitch while you are stitching, this allows you to go backwards and forwards in your design. So you would use your knobs to go forward and backwards. You can go through slow, or you can go through it 100 stitches at a time, just about, in big chunks. So let's go back to our design and go back to our needle. And let's say I'm getting ready to stitch. So I'm going to touch my foot control. You'll see a little animation of the screen telling you, oh, you're getting ready to do embroidery. Have you threaded the bobbin for embroidery? So it's just a little animation telling you to check. If you know you've done this, all you need to do is press the check. Now I'm going to want to embroider again, and now the next thing it's asking me is, what about your foot? So what I want to do here is the embroidery foot is 26. I need to go out to the embroidery foot, or to the presser foot selection, and I need to select foot number 26. So it needs to be yellow. And then the other thing you want to do is, the preferred plate for doing embroidery is either the straight stitch or the cutwork plate. They're both really the same, but you want to pick one of these, and that gives you the perfect selection for working with embroidery. And then you should be able to start your embroidery. You do have additional information on the screen. This 16 minutes is the total time it will take to stitch this out. This green color is going to take 2 minutes to stitch out, so you can help gauge the process as you're moving along. So let's go do a few other things. Let's go get another design, and this time we're going to just build a design. So we're going to select something from our quilting menu, and I really like this big stitch there. And that was, it was telling me there's a needle that's down. So let's get our needle moved up, okay, so that it's happy. And I'm going to select a larger hoop so that there's a little bit more room to work. Tell it I have the jumbo. I'm going to go into my, let's just gather everything all together before we start affecting each thing. So I'm going to add, and I'm going to go back into my folders, and we're going to find a design, maybe this little flower. And you can see these layers start to pop up, and they'll continue to build if I continue to add things. So touching the bottom layer, let's see, somehow I want to be able to turn that off. So if I touch the bottom layer, I get both of the designs in color, so I can move both of these around. Or if I go back into my move, maybe I want to center that, so now it's back centered. And I can individually start changing things, so I'm going to change the size. So I want to enlarge the size of my little quilting design, and I think that's looking kind of neat, but I think I want to rotate that. So I'm going to rotate that to almost 45 degrees or so. And now I'm going to take a look at the overall view, and that's looking kind of nice, but maybe I want to change the size of the flower. So we're still staying in the information menu. I'm just using the navigation and using the eye breadcrumb. Let's change the size just a little bit. So we're just going to make it a little bit larger. And perhaps we want to mirror image it. So that's something else that we could do. And I think I want to add some lettering. So we'll use our breadcrumbs. We want to go back to our main menu and like to select one of our alphabets. And you can scroll and you can take a look at some of the alphabets that you have. You'll notice that you have some alphabets 2 times. One has a horizontal orientation and one has a vertical orientation. And this is how they will write on the screen. So I'm going to select the vertical orientation, and I'm going to type in the word flower. The keyword is A, B, C, D, E, F, G because this is how the alphabet runs in all countries. Keywords can be different throughout different countries. If you were ever wondering why, it's not the typing keyboard that you're used to. All of these letters came in capitals because I was in the all caps side. Smaller case, numbers, and special symbols you also have. If you typed in something by accident, this is your delete key. And then check to confirm. Because I selected the lettering situation that was going vertically, I have a vertical orientation on my lettering. So now I also have the word art icon or the letter manipulation icon that allows me to do a couple of things. The upper knob is going to allow me to add spacing or kerning. The lower knob is going to let me bend it. And you can decide if you like what you see, and maybe full color would help me decide that. And I don't really like that. So we're just going to get rid of it and say, yes, that's not what I want. I'm going to go back out to my alphabet and I'm going to select, I'm even going with a different alphabet. And I'm going to go the horizontal way. So let's type in our same text and check. Now we have our lettering going out across the screen. Selecting word art again, I can, or you can, adjust the spacing, and you can also adjust the arc of it. And now perhaps you want this on top, and I think that's a little bit better. I like that look. So if I go back into just my lettering, we can continue to change this so that it almost hugs the top of that V. And at this point, you might be ready to stitch this out. So you've hooped your fabric. Your hoop is not on the machine yet. You'll close out of here, and then you will select the needle. And now it's going to ask you to attach the hoop. Who knows where the position of the arm is? So you always will touch the needle without the hoop being attached, and it will tell you when to attach it. This is a partially a safety feature as well. So when you attach the hoop, you'll be ready to stitch out. See, and now I need to attach the jumbo and go into my design, and now I'm ready to stitch. So I can step through the colors and see each one of these along the way, and if I wanted to start at the flower, I could advance through the needle, these color changes up and down. And a couple other icons on this screen. This is your monochromatic or your single color design. So even though this design has lots of color, if you activate this, it will stitch the entire design without stopping. So you could have a white work design or a black work design or whatever type of color design you want. Maybe you want to stitch just the last bit all as one color. You could turn that on at various times during your process. Let's go back and look at a couple of other things. So to get a new design, or maybe we like that design so much and wasn't that nice, I left the screen, but it's still there. How do you save something? So I'm going to select the selection. This is to save with the arrow going into the folder, and then you will select the design that is highlighted. Because the machine is the button that is pressed, depressed, it's kind of gray, it's going to save to the machine memory. But if I want to save this to a USB stick, all I need to do is select the USB option, and then it will save off to the USB stick. So you can save it to either way. I'm going to go select another design, and you'll need to go back to the machine. I'm going to select this little flower and select a different hoop, and let's say that we wanted a couple of those, and we're just going to duplicate those. When I get ready to stitch this out and go to my needle, I have another icon that's become illuminated, and that is the resequence tool. So right now I have 3 flowers of the same thing. They it looks like they're at one color design. So if I wanted them to stitch out all at one time without stopping, I would touch resequence, and what it's going to do now is take those 3 colors and combine it into one. Now this happens with if it was 3 designs of multiple colors. So it would take the 15 colors and consolidate that into 5. And this will become more important as we work with endless embroidery and shaping. So we'll take a look at that as we go on in our next program. So that pretty much concludes everything that we're doing in the introduction for embroidery. So we've taken a quick look at embroidery. I've probably given you enough information to play around with a lot of your stitches, a lot of the different functions. And next time when we're together, we will look at a couple of other creative options, endless embroidery and shaping, and we'll look at the color wheel just a little bit more. So a few more things to take a look at in our next session. Thanks everyone, and hope you have fun starting embroidery. Bye-bye.